Beautiful souls. Is there any proof or scientific proof behind creating your own reality with changing your thoughts, or is it all just some hippy-dippy bullshit? Well, today we're going to be diving into that topic, and I'll be providing you with just a little bit of anatomy and that science behind the power of your thoughts in order to help heal what ails us. So before we dive in, I just want to take a second to say thank you all for showing up. It's always a blessing to be able to connect with you all. I cherish it so much. And for those of you all that are new to the channel, I'm Dani. Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is Heal What Ails You, the channel for healing, the channel for healing yourself and for ultimately healing the collective. So beautiful souls, what's the anatomy or the science behind positive thinking and changing your life? So let's dive into how our mind and our body are affected by negative thinking. So when we have negative thoughts, then think of those feelings we normally feel when we have negativity. We feel angry, sad, anxious, depressed, and when we are fearful, a lot of the time, fear of the future, fear of the unknown, we're uncomfortable, right? And that brings a lot of fear. So when we have these feelings, those are feelings associated with what is known within the body as the fight or flight response. So when we are in this fight or flight response, our prefrontal cortex here up in the mind says something's going on, they need to flee, they need to run, right? You're stressed out. And when that gets turned on by that prefrontal cortex, your body says, well, let's pump in some adrenaline and some cortisol. And this cortisol elevates your blood sugars. It ceases hunger so that your digestive system's not working, so you're not worried about needing to be fed. It shuts down the need to eliminate, so you're not needing to go to the bathroom. And it gives you kind of like this really narrow mindset and turns it into kind of this like me. Because this response is designated to get you out of like an emergent situation. So when we were cavemen back in the day, and maybe we had some type of animal chasing after us, when firefighters are going into a burning house to rescue a person out of the home, we enter this response so that we can get in and get out and ultimately survive. And we can think about this flight or fight response kind of in like a zombie apocalypse, if you're into those type of things, because it also turns us into a very me way of thinking. What do I need to do to survive? Your body's just trying to do everything but not die right now. And that's wonderful, right? Like that's an amazing response that our body has when it's necessary, when we are truly within danger. But if we live in stress, a lot of the times, and we live in these negative thought forms where we are catastrophizing and we're internalizing and personalizing and guilting ourselves, those feelings that we feel in that time of I just have to survive, turn this system on, and instead of it being short term, like just to get you out of the emergent issue, it becomes operating chronically. So over time, you know, your body's not designed to be exposed to this cortisol for an extended period of time. And if you're running it chronically, if you're in that fight or flight constantly, then what do we see happen? Well, you're gonna have digestive issues blood sugar complications, and with having a high blood sugar all the time, you end up with like nerve ending damage as well. So you have issues with your circulation and being able to feel. You're in this very self-centered mindset of just like me, 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 me. I need to survive. It's all about me, 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 me. And this can lead to high blood pressure. Cortisol is a steroid, so it has you gaining weight. So that's why we say, when you're stressed, you can put on some weight gain. You might have issues with your alimentary system, so maybe you have bladder issues or bowel trouble as well. It also can affect your eyes from having that high blood sugar all the time. You're not really feeding those nerve endings, and you can have some vision issues. So lots of us live in this fight or flight response on a day-to-day basis because, life's hard, but when you're in that burnout phase or when you're not living within alignment, then you're constantly like having to work and just conquer the day and just telling yourself to get through it, right? You kind of enter this fight or flight response throughout your day-to-day living just to get through it. So in addition to just the general response of your body when you're in this fearful state, when you're in these negative thought forms, there's been research to show that in that prefrontal cortex as well, you don't have any like growth in the brain. It actually can inhibit brain tissue growth as well from having this response chronically activated. And so you're damaging your brain tissue, and it's limiting the ability for your mind to be able to grow. So let's look at what happens when we're in positive thought forms. So if you're thinking positive, and positive doesn't mean that you don't feel, okay? We're not saying that if something bad happens not to cry or not to be angry, not to have those emotions. We are human. It's our divine purpose to have these emotions. But if we're kind of flipping the script and we're not holding on to it, and we're able to look at the big picture of things and not just focus on the negativity, and we can see that positivity there, then our body is not in that fight or flight response. We're able to just chill out, calm down a little bit. With positive thinking, we see a decrease in cortisol because you're not having to just survive. And we see an increase in the neurotransmitters that are associated with your pleasure center of your brain. And these neurotransmitters are serotonin and dopamine. And when we talk about depression and anxiety, these are the two neurotransmitters that are normally spoke about. And a lot of like your antidepressants and your anti-anxiety medications work on these two neurotransmitters. And so when you have an increase of serotonin and dopamine by being in these positive thought forms, then naturally you're just happy because your body is providing itself its own antidepressant. And actually, I don't know if I mentioned, but when you're in that fight or flight response, those neurotransmitters are decreased. So, all right, when we stay in a positive thought form, we have our own natural antidepressant being administered to us. And that it has shown signs of increased creativity, increased awareness, increased focus. And so with increased activity, with increased focus, and with increased awareness, we can get a lot more done, right? That way. We're actually able to see. And it creates this feeling of euphoria and wholeness. So we become a we when we're in positive thought forms, as in just a me when we're in negative thought forms. Now what happens with the brain? We talked about the prefrontal cortex and negative thought forms. So there's actually been research done that in the prefrontal cortex, they've seen more synapses growth. So that means you actually are having brain growth within the pleasure centers than you are with the negative thought form centers. The brain does not grow in negative thought form centers. Actually, you just see an increase in the fear center of your brain. So, whew, I feel like I went back to nursing school. So for those of you all that needed a little clarification or just a little science behind the fact, I hope this provided it to you, and I really enjoyed doing this. I am really big into science in that aspect, but I'm huge into spirituality as well. So I love when we can see like kind of the science back up what the ancients have known forever. Beautiful souls, I hope this provided you with some good information. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments. How's the positive thinking going? Are you struggling with it, or are you feeling like a little butterfly fluttering around in all your lightness? Let me know about what you want to hear in the future. Remember that we are in this together, okay? You are not alone. And until next time, there's nothing but love and light. It's a beautiful day for healing.